In the picture framing industry, the words conservation and preservation are often used interchangeably, but their meanings are different in important ways. This session explains the differences between conservation and preservation. Professional conservation generally serves to repair damage and deterioration, improving the longevity and the appearance of an item. Conservation involves professional diagnosis and a corrective treatment by a scientific specialist, often a chemist or biologist, trained and experienced in all aspects of working with certain types of materials, artworks, and artifacts. The treatments could involve careful cleaning to remove stains or soiling accumulated over time. Consolidation may be necessary to halt or compensate for deterioration in the original materials, perhaps to strengthen or reinforce the substrate. Repairs may be needed for tears or punctures. Wrinkles and creases may be flattened for cosmetic improvement of appearance. Conservation treatments may involve sophisticated mechanical procedures using various tools, as well as procedures using solvents, paints, inks, and other chemical elements that could cause greater harm if misused. So experimentation on irreplaceable customers' property is to be avoided. Preservation, on the other hand, is preventive rather than corrective, and this can be accomplished through professional picture framing using specialized methods and materials. Preservation framing creates a protective environment and causes minimal changes to the items framed. A durable enclosure is required, constructed out of high-quality, chemically inert internal materials, which would not react within the tightly closed environment of the frame. Also, non-invasive methods assure minimal changes to the items framed. Attachment provisions should be secure, yet non-invasive and reversible, so most adhesives should not be used in direct contact. Permanent mounting generally would be unacceptable for preservation framing. While preservation framing protects an item from changes inside the frame, it also provides limited protection from changes caused by external influences, such as light, moisture, and rapid or radical changes of temperature and humidity. At least 97% of ultraviolet radiation should be filtered out by the glass or acrylic glazing. Tight fitting and finishing generally allows the entire assembly to slowly adapt to changing ambient conditions, but it's important to keep out dirt, insects, and air pollution as much as possible. In some cases, it is advisable to completely seal the frame, creating a true microclimate, but this would require routine maintenance of the seals, and it would not be necessary for the framing of most items displayed in typical climate-controlled environments. Just as professional conservation requires specialized training, so does preservation framing. Books and educational classes are available on the methods and materials involved. Preservation does not always involve framing. Storage may be more appropriate, especially for items that are very susceptible to damage from light and other anticipated hazards. In this case, perhaps a high-quality digital reproduction can be framed instead, which would eliminate the preservation concerns. And then the original can be stored in a suitable container in a clean, dry, climate-controlled environment. Generally, a durable, tightly closed container made of chemically stable, inert materials would be suitable. Depending on the item, the storage container might also require special padding or support materials around the item. So, how do we know when an item is worthy of preservation framing or professional conservation? That usually is a matter of value, and there are several kinds of value. Monetary value refers to money, such as insurance or retail value. This type of value is most easily determined by appraisal or by comparing sales of similar items. Sentimental value is about personal significance, and it may have nothing to do with money. For example, heirlooms or personal collectibles may have little or no monetary value, but could be priceless to their owners. This type of value may be difficult or impossible to compensate in the event of damage or loss, so extreme care and caution are advised when working with such items. Cultural, historic, or religious value refers to an item's significance to a particular group or community. For example, the items displayed in an historical society or in a museum could have significant cultural value. Of course, all types of value can increase or decrease over time according to variation in an item's significance, condition, or demand. Now that we've discussed the differences between conservation and preservation, let's distinguish between framers and conservators. Framing credentials are available for those who choose to earn them, but are not required. As a result, there's a wide disparity of qualifications among picture framers. Since framers may encounter all sorts of challenges and variety in the items customers bring in for framing, experimentation is a primary method of learning. However, it would be unwise to experiment on customers' property. Conservators generally are university-educated scientists who have also acquired special training through mentoring or apprenticeship with established professionals in their chosen conservation specialties. Conservators usually specialize in certain materials such as paper, textiles, wood, leather, and so on. Also, some conservators specialize in certain types of art, such as multimedia graphics, watercolors, pastels, or paintings on canvas. Due to the extensive education and training necessary to become a professional conservator, nearly all of them are well qualified in their specialties. Conservators may also use specialized equipment for their assessment and treatment processes. Experience is invaluable, so that experimentation and risky procedures can be avoided. Customers often ask framers to perform treatments that could pose a risk of damage or destruction for the customer's property. While it may be tempting to comply with such requests, we should keep in mind that failed treatments can worsen the existing damage or, in some cases, result in complete destruction. The effects of ill-advised chemical treatments, for example, might not show up for years. Recognizing the hazards of experimentation, we should take no chances with customers' property, but refer to professional conservators instead. As framers, we may find it difficult to resist consumers who say, "Just do what you can." They want to save money, of course, and probably do not realize the differences between professional conservation treatment and a framer's experimentation. They may not realize the risk of further damage or destruction that may be involved. We want to build customer loyalty and save money for them, and we want to earn extra profit by providing extra services too. But we must realize the risk of trouble and the possibility that we could become responsible for the considerable expense of correcting a failed treatment. Insurance coverage may not be available in such cases. So how would a framer compensate the customer, especially for an item of high sentimental value? When you are asked to frame an item in need of conservation treatment, here are some suggestions about how to recommend assessment and possible treatment by a professional conservator. First, inform the customer of what you know about the issues. Generally, existing deterioration will not stay the same, but will continue to worsen over time. Conservation treatment may not only improve the appearance of the item, but might also extend its longevity. Help the customer understand that conservation treatment would be intended to increase long-term value, whether that would be monetary, sentimental, or cultural value. And without treatment, the value would be reduced over time. To help inform customers about the value of conservation work, refer them to credible sources of information, such as Cero Art, Conservation Exposition Restoration of Art Objects in Europe, and AIC in North America. Major museums in your region can often provide resource information as well. In order to help customers understand the condition of their items, provide a condition report to describe what conservation work may be advised. While this could not be considered a professional assessment or recommendation of treatment, it should be intended as a starting point in the process. Specifically, identify all known issues in the condition report and photograph details or make drawings to show the nature and location of damage and deterioration. Then, send an inquiry to a conservator with questions such as these. Would framing worsen the item's condition? Would existing deterioration or damage worsen over time? How would conservation treatment improve the item? If the conservator believes the treatment may be advised, He or she would probably want to perform a formal assessment of the item for a fee, and the item would have to be shipped. Often, the assessment fee may be credited toward the charge for treatment. In return for the assessment fee, the conservator usually will provide a professional condition report, written recommendations for treatment, an estimate of the cost, and an estimate of the time required for completion of the treatment. The customer would be responsible for all of the costs, of course, and we should keep the customer informed throughout that process. When conservation work is recommended, provide the customer as much information as possible. Especially, recommend conservators by name and describe their qualifications. Offer to act as an agent for the customer's convenience. Or, if the owner prefers to work directly with the conservator, provide contact information. Why should we, as picture framers, become involved in the conservation process? First, it's a way for us to provide valuable services to our customers, which may result in additional business and referrals to new customers. Professional conservators often are accustomed to working with museum and art industry professionals and may prefer not to work directly with consumers. In that case, the framer can serve as a useful agent for the convenience of the conservator as well as for the customer. And let us not forget the benefit of additional revenue. Hourly or fixed fees may be charged for the work of preparing a condition report, especially if photographs and drawings are involved. Paid time is also required to research, locate, and communicate with suitable conservators. And then there is the packing, shipping, and handling of the item throughout the process, all of which involves paid time. The conservation work itself may be charged directly to the customer, but some conservators offer a discount or a finder's fee to cooperating framers. As picture framers, we are usually responsible for the customer's property in our custody. Perhaps the owner's insurance would cover loss by some causes, and conservators generally have insurance to cover items in their possession, but it would be wise to verify coverage throughout the process. In any case, avoid problems by obtaining the owner's written approval and permission for all of the work involved, with clear understanding about the costs and the time involved. Keep copies of all documentation and correspondence involved. A waiver of responsibility may be advised to limit your liability while the item is out of your hands in the event of shipping damage or theft, for example. As you can see, there are distinct differences between conservation and preservation, and both are worthy topics. Offering to help obtain conservation treatment can be a valuable service for customers. Offering preservation framing can help to preserve and protect customers' valuables. These specialties can build customer loyalty and add well-earned profit to your custom framing business.